So hopefully I have solved all our connection issues now. I will continue. So quick update about me. I am working with CakePHP already for 13 plus years, and it's probably now 15 already. I have been, I'm based in Berlin, and I have been doing a lot of PHP development for the last 20 years, and specialized in tooling, so automation of stuff, background tasks, and so on. And so, yeah, also naturally provide a lot of CakePHP plugins that I'm using, but also I assume other people are using. So we're gonna dive right into the new CakePHP 5 version together with the PHP Storm IDE, because that is the status quo in a way of all the IDEs. Like, this is a very powerful one and provides a lot of functionality out of the box. So we're going to use that to present. Some speed up tips, some regular development tips for CakePHP. I'm going to explain some of the annotations and how you can also have better autocomplete and type hinting in your daily work, which usually means
it's going to be tricky. What's going on? So, Mark's laptop kept being disconnected from the call, from the GPT call. I don't know why. Otherwise, I don't know.
The connection is just gone. Do you have a wired connection? No, right? You can't just wire in. It just
you can use you can.
Let's hope the internet connection stays alive. Yeah, for at least the next hour. All right. So I showed the agenda, and if we still have time, I can go a bit into PHP standards on, but that might be a bit out of scope. So we'll see how far we get. So for for CakePHP 5, the PHP Storm IDE naturally comes already with a very high support, or the other way around. CakePHP 5 is coded in a way that you don't need to do too much kind of meta and annotating. There are a few plugins that are recommended though. One important one is the deep ASOC completion. This one helps you with arrays and the keys that are possible in arrays. So whenever you have an options array somewhere, it would go into the code and would extract all the possible keys and give you them as autocomplete. I'm fairly certain we can show that as well pretty quick. If I go to any code in the sandbox and go to, I think here even, right? Before or after. Depends on what kind of array and options, probably somewhere. I could also just go to that link. And kind of just give you this link as well to look through what other options are available. Yeah, so this deep ASOC completion can really help to find the right keys to avoid that you have a typo in there and you will never find it. For example, if not empty, some configuration array, some key, and it's wrong, then you will never be able to use that code. If you don't have tests for it, you will not find out. So maybe look into what kind of options you want to enable. Some unchecking of things that might be needed for code styling, just to have all the modern stuff available as well. You can also look that up in the plugin wiki. So that's all there. Now let's go to the actual annotation. When you bake new code, it comes automatically shipped with quite a few annotations. So if we go into a entity, let's say exposed user. So it already ships with some properties for the entities. It ships with method calls for the table classes. All of that is generated by Bake in a way. You might have outdated signatures though, coming from Cake 4. Using the annotator of the IDE plugin, you can automatically update them. So if we run this here in Cake annotate, usually it will tell us that you want to use a type, so or. And I'm using dry run just to show, but not do anything. So nothing changes. I can show you, for example, if this one is missing, then it should actually, yeah, there was actually some things it did. Yeah, it really updated quite a bit of those from the previous to the new style. So you can see that it adds those annotations, and they're really useful because inside it will then have the correct type returned. So you don't have to guess what the method, the available methods on this are, but you can directly use them. So whenever you do a save call or a find, it will give you not just the interface of the entity, so the abstract type, but it gives you the concrete exposed user with all the possible methods and properties that are in this specific one. So in this case, we know that it has these properties, and you can directly reference them. So that is really helpful, and it keeps it always up to date. So whenever we add in the migrations a new field, and you just run the same command again, it will automatically add the property here, and you have direct access again in your code base, and also your static analysis tool will be happy about this. Yeah. Then we also have code completion and meta files available. I'll go to that in a second. For now, the meta files for the IDE are often some generated code snippets here that in a way just show you the signatures available. So these are these magic callbacks that we have inside of controller, for example, or inside of a component. And by default, the IDE wouldn't know how the signature looks like. So when you are inside of a component or a controller, we can take any controller, maybe contact or export controller. And now we want to add not just before filter and after filter, but also maybe a before render. Public function before render. And now through this, it has the signature available. Yeah. So that helps with these more magic things, because by design, there is no direct interface linking to those. So the IDE would not exactly know how to generate this. And the same is for the ORM with all the possible behaviors and also all the events that are callbacks inside of the table classes and the behavior classes. So it's quite powerful in your IDE to really have them available, because it's so much faster to actually include these kind of little snippets for your events. And the third one is the PHP Storm meta file. This is the most powerful of them all. It kind of looks like this, if you want to really look into it. So this is generated by the IDE helper based on tasks. So you can also generate and create your own tasks for any specific class and method, and what it's supposed to return or what it's supposed to accept as parameters. I can dive into that really quickly just to give you a better understanding. Maybe I'll do that on the documentation. It's probably a bit easier if I go into the wiki here, docs. Generator. So some examples, but we are mainly interested in the different directives. So the override directive would, in a way, just take a string and would give you back the class. So what kind of class would be returned by something? This is usually happening when you have a table locator get call, where you just put the string of the table in, and then the concrete object is given back. So the IDE knows what you're working on. I can probably show that in the queue. So if we have here a table locator get, then this is the magic string, and it returns us the actual queued jobs table. So instead of just having what the get return would usually return, a normal table without any information, it can actually give us back the more concrete version, and we can work with it and continue to work with that further down. And the second benefit is that you can have autocomplete on this. So whenever you have such methods where you know a finite number of possible values here, so these are magic strings in a way, and magic strings usually are considered bad. So in order to remove this complete magic, we can make them visible as types. So if you want to look it up, you can go into here, and you can usually select, I know why, we have to write this in, actually we have to do this in the sandbox. So here, there we go. So queued jobs table, this get table locator, get here, and now it will give us a list. Yeah, it will give us a list of possible models, in this case all tables, that you can select from, and if you type enter, it will automatically add it into. So now we have the queued jobs table, and it also knows the exact type, which is the queued jobs. So if I go here, it will also give you the auto-completed methods it has on the specific object. So in this case, for example, create job. And the next level would be create job inside of this plugin has also been added to this process of meta file generation. So there's a specific task that takes care of create job. And so if we go into create job, it will again be able to give us a list of all the available tasks that we have at hand. So maybe we want to use a mailer task, and we can feed it then with the options that it provides, if anything. So you can see that with this, you can just type very quickly. And of course, you could also use the fully qualified class names, but then you would need to know exactly where they are, what are they named, and you don't get like this kind of list where you can think about what is it, what you need. So both is viable. If you use magic strings, it should be auto-completable in a way. That would be my recommendation. So yeah, we can autocomplete this, all that, that's cool. All right. Let's go back to the directives. So this was mainly the override. Expected arguments is much simpler. It would just give you the list of possible values, but it doesn't care about the return type. So this can be useful if you have a list of possible magic strings and you just want them to be auto-completed. So I, for example, use this for icons in the templates, but you can use it for anything where the return type wouldn't be an object or anything specific. So I can show you that in a template. If I go here and I have bootstrap icons and all kind of font awesome icons, and I go to echo this icon, this is my icon helper, render, I can now select from a list here. So it just, or this task that creates the meta file has been instructed to look into the CSS files and to extract all the possible keys there. And therefore, I can now see exactly what I'm looking for. So when I know I'm looking for some kind of battery, I can just filter already. And I can see, okay, well, I want to have the battery full. And then it can render out this icon. And I know it exists because this is the list I selected. I'm not just typing something where I could have the wrong kind of underscore versus minus versus some other typo, but it actually should render out. So if I go to the test page, I see the battery sign on here. And I can, of course, use all the different styles. I think there is a namespace style as well in there. Yeah, Bootstrap. Bootstrap has a namespace here. You can define all that in your own, like whatever you allow this to work and to happen. And you can see the icons showing up. I don't really, and that was one of my problem before, I always forgot about it. I needed to look up into the Bootstrap icon documentation and look through millions of those. Whereas here I can usually be much quicker. So this would be the second directive. Here. Then there is a third one where it's mainly important about the return values. So this one you can also use and generate. And the last one, actually it's not the last one. This one is a register argument sets is for combining. Yeah, it's for combining and reusing these kind of lists. So when you have these icons and you have different methods where you want to use this list, you can generate it once into a set, and then you can reuse that set in the other directives. So you're saving a little bit of file space, especially when you have a lot of methods using the same thing. It can really help to kind of keep it comprised. So for example, for the model tasks, you can see here that the aliases for the get are locator interface, locator aware, model aware. So all of those are taking the same model name as argument. And then we're just using the set once, and then we're putting the set into each of those. And so we're only printing the list of models in this case once, and reusing them in those. I think you can see it somewhere later down. Yeah, we don't have to go into the code directly now. There is a new one in there that I didn't use much yet, exit point. So we can also specify in the IDE which methods actually abort. And then it wouldn't give you this information about, hey, but your code doesn't exit or return or anything. Unreachable statement, so to call. That is probably something we don't use much. The core code could use that maybe. So we have abort in the command line and a few other things where we could probably annotate as such. Yeah, and of course you can create your own, as I've done for the queue, as I've done for the icons, for the icon helper. So we probably don't have too much time to dive into that. That's why I will probably not do a live coding on that. documentation, something that you might find useful. Completion and file usage can also be very powerful. It's the new route path handling. So you might have seen in Cake 4.4 or something where it was added that you have that you can create URLs, not just from the array with controller and action and also so on, but you can also create them from paths. So with all the tooling that I just explained, I can show you how that kind of works. So when we're here and we are having a HTML URL rendering, you kind of know that there is a action, controller, and so on, like something like this. So this can often be error prone because you have to manually also know these kind of things, and it can be potentially leading to a wrong URL. There is a new way of doing that with the URL path, link from path, yeah. I think there's also URL from path. If I go to URL helper, there should also be something built from path. That's the method exactly. So, and both of those methods now have also autocomplete. So here you can see that the IDE helper, knowing all of the possible actions, controllers, actions, and so on, can generate a list, even the complex ones that are inside of a plugin. For example, here this prefix access controller edit action. So by just clicking, I generated the URL for that. So this can be quite useful if you want to really quickly work with URLs and you don't want to have this more verbose way of using arrays. Whatever you want, it should be showing up in our little test. Yeah. It works the same way. It uses everything in the meta file built by what we configured inside of our IDE helper setup. So in the IDE helper setup, some people want to use array as generics instead of the old school way with the brackets. Objects can be done the same way. You can add specific custom annotators. So you can replace the original annotator with a custom one that you have extended if you want to. You can add additional tasks for the generator on top. In this case, the service task has been added to have autocomplete for the services being loaded. Yeah, the icon, this one we don't need anymore. The icon render task is responsible for the icons that I just showed you earlier. If you're curious, you can probably look into how the collect icons works inside, how it collects all of the possible icons from the CSS files, so the metadata in there, and how it creates the argument sets here, sets it all into the right method for render with a position of 0. That means the first position inside of render, and gives it all back to the main IDE helper command to actually then render this out as this text file that you have seen before. It all becomes this huge blob of PHP Storm metadata. So yeah, depending on how much time we got, we can go a little bit deeper into how we create this and how it can actually help you to also enhance it at any time if you need anything. Every time you create a new kind of job, though, you need to rerun the annotator. In this case, the generator. So let's see if we can bake a new job. So terminal bin bake. Where's the bake for the queue? Queue bake queue task. So can we bake queue task? And it will probably, yeah. So I need a name for it. Foobar is great. So foobar has been created. So we don't have to do, we don't have to do anything in this now. I just want to show how what you need to do in order for it to register again. Because if you go into here and you want to now select foobar, it doesn't show, right? So the annotation file is not up to date. What I usually do, composer setup. Composer setup is a shortcut for me. So it's just a script in Composer. Composer setup. Wait, that's the wrong one. I need this one. So setup. It just runs generate code completion and generate PHP Storm. So you could add as much as you want into the setup command, but once you run composer setup, it will internally run the necessary IDE helper commands, which will regenerate the meta file. And you can see in the meta file, if we open it as a diff, it added the foobar task into the accepted arguments list. So creating the task, baking it or manually creating it, modifying it any way you want, running the regeneration command, and now if we go to that, it should actually have the foobar available. There we go. Yeah. So there could be some investigation if the new PHP Storm these days also understands fully qualified class names. That would be nice, because then you can more directly follow up on these things. But for now, I always used these kind of strings. Yeah, so this is how you have your own custom methods available, and how easy it is to quickly have everything able to get typed out. I already showed the icons and templates and how you can create autocomplete for it. What could be interesting is maybe the IDE helper extra. So you have two options dependency wise. You can either add any task for the generator in your own plugin, making it dependent on the IDE helper. So that is a dependency towards it. And if you don't want that, you can put it into a pivot kind of plugin. In this case, extra, because then this plugin has the dependency towards the IDE helper and towards the other plugin or whatever code library this might be. So that is just a way to resolve the dependency issue if you don't want to have this dependency. And in this case, I just threw in here the icons, the icon topic, and even the authentication service load identifier. So you might know about the authentication plugin. There was some talk about it the other day. And it also has a load identifier with certain possible strings in there. And of course, you can submit your own tasks for the generator of any of these plugins. And you can also put it into your own. I think the Q plugin, as I've shown earlier, directly ships with it. So here, the generator is directly in here. So in this case, I'm fine with having the dependency because I'm owning both plugins. So I know about possible upgrading topics. But if you want to keep it out of your dependency tree, you can have your own plugin on top that would reference both directions. It actually also has isQt, which, interesting enough, has this second param as possible position, right? So it should also work with isQt. I haven't used that for a while. Let's see, table is isQt. Ah, yeah, and the first, in this case, something is a reference here, doesn't matter. And then it's the actual name. So we can see it also works here because we defined the autocomplete on the second param through this meta file. The first one has none. So if you would know the possible references, because we maybe looked in the database and we know it can only be 6 different types of references. So these are also in a way magic strings. We could also autocomplete this. Yeah, so this is absolutely something that this would be more on application level, because references here refer to the type of queue job specific to your application. And here you can make your own addition and just reference, autocomplete this part as well. Cool. So good that we looked into this, because isQt has a nice example of using not the first but the second argument. And then we do have a little bit of time, right? A few minutes. It is helpful to look into the CakeDC PHP Stan extension, because it provides, on top of what we just did for the IDE and for the humans to work with it, it also provides static analysis completion. So it makes it understand it better. And so it's really vital to have this part of your code base if you're using a lot of these kind of things. I will show you how this looks like if we don't have it installed. So this is the Q plugin, right? And here, if I do composer stan, it would find 17 issues out of the box. One of them is the getStats method here that exists on the Q jobs table. So the IDE understands it. I can click on it and I can follow it. That's awesome, because we have our little get trick with a meta file in it. But this meta file is for the IDE only, and for the PHP Stan, it's unknown. So if we add the CakeDC extension in require dev, and we enable it in the neon file here, vendor CakeDC extension, we composer update that we need to do. It's to load it. Composer stan setup, because it's a plugin, doesn't have it automatically. And then running it. You will see that all the 17 errors go away. So you have 2 options. Either you manually annotate everything inline. You can go into, where was it here? You can manually annotate this. So you can add here Qt jobs table, and then it also is that understood out of the box. Absolutely fine. But if you want to really quickly write through, then oftentimes you don't want to have every inline annotation in there, and it wouldn't be needed with these kind of tools. So it's absolutely up to you if you want to add 17 or potentially at least 17 additional inline annotations, or if you use the tools available that help you to create the safe kind of code base that we want. Cool. Any questions?
I have just a question about what you just explained.
Yeah.
How did Stan, because you're including the CakePHP Stan file, how did he know that that was the right table? This is your homemade table.
Repeat
the question. Repeat the question, otherwise they won't.
Oh, yeah. So the question is, for this specific here, get table locator get, how it knows that it's this concrete kind of object, so that it really gets the right kind of get stats method, so that it knows that it exists on this kind of object. For that, is it already open somewhere? Let's see. Yeah, right. There we go. It has this kind of dynamic loading extensions.
Okay.
And these dynamic loading extensions have the same kind of locator pattern that the core uses. So if you have the name, you can derive the class name by convention from it. And this is something you need to teach PHP Stan, because it wouldn't directly know it out of the box. Yeah. It's a good question, and it's also a nice way to learn how you can also use that for your own types. So whenever you are, again, in need of this, because you want to use less inline annotations, then maybe you can write a similar kind of extension for your code. Any other questions?
Thank you. Now I know what I'll do on Monday.
Is there anything in the chat?
Only install the composer.
Yeah, I think so, because I mean the question is if it's only installable via Composer. Yeah, as everything in these days in PHP, everything is done via Composer. I am not aware of things that wouldn't be using Composer these days. So it's kind of a de facto standard, and it's very comfortable, and it saves you usually a lot of time because you don't have to maintain these vendor things on your own. Okay, and I think then, there's another question coming in. Oh, no, it's not. It's just thank you. And yeah, just a quick note, I'm open for hire in end of this year, maybe November, maybe later.
Shameless plug.
And so hit me up if you have any cool Cake projects or not. Can also be PHP projects, of course. And maybe, we'll find it together. I'll bring my tool chains and tool kits with me. Cool.